at a B flat? Or an A sharp? It's time to reinterpret. If you want to get serious about composing and arranging music, you'll want to hear this. Also, some of these concepts require visual aids, so go to our website, musicstudent101.com. Click on this episode, episode 102, and see what we're talking about. We are Music Student 101. And now your hosts, Jeremy Burns and Matthew Scott Phillips.
Okay, man, we are back.
Welcome back, everybody.
After another fantastic listener compositions episode.
Yes, that was great.
That was, man.
We love those.
We do. But at some point, we got to get back to the theory thing.
Indeed.
This is a theory podcast.
It is.
We do apply a lot of theory to what we're talking about in our listener composition episodes.
Oh, yeah. We never really stop talking about theory, do we?
Mm-mm. And a lot of our listener compositions apply the theory techniques we discuss on the show and put them in their compositions.
Wonderful. I love that. I mean, that's terrifying, but I also love it.
It is terrifying. But in true fashion, we did our intro music, in a way that kind of mirrors what we're talking about in the show. But the funny thing is, we're talking about enharmonic spellings today.
Right.
Which is the kind of thing you might not hear, probably won't hear.
By definition, you don't, quote-unquote, hear
Yes.
an enharmonic spelling, and yet you definitely hear what happens because of them.
Yes. And you can see them in the music, for sure.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But we're going to get into that. But first, let me just give you a little, if you want to go back and listen to the opening bit, you can hear what's going on. And let's see. I have my guitar. Lena. Okay, so it's an E major. So the intro is kind of, or the main kind of theme when you're hearing.
Nice.
It's going to be an E major, like a 1 to 2, it's F sharp minor, back to 1, and then to a B7, which is 5-7 chord, then back to 1. But this time,
that weird thing.
Augmented, and then back to the 1 in first inversion, and then the B. So,
very nice.
Cool thing to listen for. And then at some point, we actually go from 1 to F diminished. And then that goes into a C. Because the F diminished is the same as B diminished, right?
Yes.
Enharmonically.
Enharmonically. Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. So anyways, go back and listen to that and see if you can pick up on some of that. And maybe by the end of the episode, you'll have a better idea of what we're talking about.
Let's hope so.
Maybe. I don't know. Because again, it's more visual than audio.
In some ways.
Okay, before we get into it, we have some new reviews.
A new review.
Uh-huh. I've got a surprise in here for you, Matt.
Oh, good. I love surprises.
Do you?
Well, all right. So this review comes from T. Nelson 101 in Great Britain.
Yeah.
5 stars.
Thank you.
Yes, fantastic. T. Nelson says, love this. I'm a longtime guitar player that's always neglected the theory side. Mm-hmm. Now I'm really enjoying tuning in to learn about all this stuff, and my playing is totally improved as a result. Keep it up.
You gotta love that.
Yeah, that is what we're here for, to help you all be better musicians.
Yeah. So again, thanks for the reviews. Good and bad. The more reviews, the merrier.
Yeah.
We like the good ones.
We appreciate constructive criticism.
We do. In fact, we did get a 1-star review more recently, Matt.
Really? No.
From somebody named Jags2 via the Apple Podcast, also in Great Britain. So it's not
very divided country, Great Britain.
It's not a cultural thing. And they say waffle.
Waffle?
Is that an expression? It says unfocused and rambling. Stopped listening after 15 minutes.
Well, we can't argue with them, really. We're definitely unfocused and rambling.
Yes, absolutely. But if they had just listened for one more minute, they might have actually gotten to the content of the show.
Probably, yeah.
Because we like to give our listeners a shout out and tell their stories, their musical journeys, and so forth. So.
And we do tend to digress.
We do.
This podcast is more of a music conversation, or we like to try to present it as more of a music conversation, right? Than than a theory lecture.
Oh, yes.
You know.
If you want it straight, we can certainly recommend some textbooks.
Oh, can we ever?
If you want that without the digressions.
Yeah. But yeah, we tend to digress. We tend to, you know, this is sort of an outgrowth of what we sit around and talk about when we're not podcasting, right? I mean, we kind of sit around and talk about stuff like this.
Matt, I find you chummy.
That's good to know.
You find me chummy?
Very much. Very much.
I think a lot of our listeners find us chummy. But
find us chummy.
We digress.
But we digress, like he was saying. He's probably already stopped listening. So.
I know, right? But we did get another 5-star review from someone who said 6 stars.
Oh, wow.
They said 6 stars, even though you can't give 6 stars.
Even though you can't give, yeah, right.
But that sentiment kind of offsets the 1 star in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And, we're averaging a good 4 between just these 2 reviews. So.
Davila via Apple Podcasts from Sweden says best pod ever. So
nice. Love it.
So yeah, go ahead and send us your reviews. And if a lot of people do send us constructive criticism and ways we can pick, help the show, and we have actually listened to a good bit of them.
We have. A lot of people talk about my keyboard playing, and I'm sorry you're just stuck with that. I just suck. It's just it's a thing. It's just going to be that way. But
it's better than it was when we started, right?
Probably.
It's a progression, yeah.
Probably, yeah.
So anyways, we also have a new Patreon patron.
Yay, a new Patreon patron. This is John Anderson from Los Angeles.
Yeah, John found us on a blog searching for music theory.
Okay.
John says he likes to crank it up to 11 when it comes to nerding out on some music theory.
Well, have we got the podcast for you?
We do.
Yeah, and John says, my first instruments were my mother's pots and pans in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. Started on drums, then guitar, then keys, bass, and now I'm trying to learn to sing. I've always dabbled with drums, but I became super serious about learning my instruments theory and engineering through the last 5 years, and I'm happy with the progress I've made for myself. That's good. I like that. I have always been a rocker, so most of my music is heavier elements. When I was younger, I got Megadeth's Dave Mustaine autobiography signed by him, and the front cover reads, John, I am proud of you.
All right, man.
Nice. I keep that book next to my mixing desk at all times. I've always had a decent ear, but just recently got into scoring. I really like making theme music, and I feel like most of the pieces I've written with the intention of being the music for main themes or final movie climaxes.
Mm-hmm. My favorite.
Oh, yeah. My album, Sentimientos, is coming along pretty well. I have 5 out of 10 written so far. Hey, halfway done. Mm-hmm. And the album can be found on my SoundCloud, which I will link below as well. And John did send us a SoundCloud link.
Yeah, soundcloud.com/energy_infinite.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, go check out John's stuff. Thank you for your patronage, John.
Yes.
If other people would like to support us via Patreon, they can do that, right, Jeremy?
They can. But first, I should say, John sent us a really cool picture of his studio.
Oh, yeah?
And it is just awesome. It comes complete with a little canned air.
Nice.
Some of the finest, coolest equipment, all these great instruments, electronic MIDI drums.
And wow. Sounds elaborate.
And a Dave Mustaine book to boot.
And a Dave Mustaine book signed by the man himself.
Yeah. And back to the Patreon thing, John is actually a Perfect Fifth member.
Oh, very nice.
And when you're a Perfect Fifth member, you do get a mug or whatever we find to replace the
whatever
mug.
Cool thing we can.
I'll talk about that in a second. I've only been teasing it for like 3 months now. But he said that, and of course our Patreon Perfect Fifth members also get their own episode.
Right, where we talk for at least 15 minutes about some music theory question that you asked specifically.
Yes. And John is not sure about what the topic of his episode would be, but he mentioned he might like the idea of talking about some standard studio recording techniques.
We can do that.
At the very least, I can tell you how to record a podcast. And some music. But that might be one of those things that goes beyond the Patreon realm. And
it might.
We should call it maybe just a proper show.
That could maybe even be an episode, yeah.
Thanks to John. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, to me, like the top 4 studio, I guess, effects or things you would use would be reverb, compression, EQ, right?
Right.
And then, I don't know, maybe normalize. I mean, distortion is a big thing for guitars and everything. But
Yeah. Or noise filters or something.
Yeah. But I kind of count that as EQ a little bit, noise filters.
Yeah. Well.
But I remember, like, Dr. Angel would always say, normalize your tracks. When you're normalizing a track, you bring it up to the highest possible. The highest peak of your waveform is maxed out basically right up to 0.
Right, yeah.
So it's as loud as it can possibly be without, busting over the limit and turning into crap.
Yeah. But we digress.
But that might be a cool thing to come up, actually, John. Good idea.
Yeah. And what's that Patreon link again?
Oh, yes, patreon.com/musicstudent101.
Yes.
The people who give $1 or $2 a month can get into the site and see all the cool new videos and extra content we do, which involves...
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it involves the episodes. There's probably about a good 15 or so of them up there by now, maybe. I don't know. But the people who give $3 or $4 a month, they can get a Music Student 101 coffee mug. And I've been actually... We ran out of the ceramic mugs, and I had a problem shipping to Europe. By the time this episode airs, I'll have that straightened out, and maybe I'll get 1 or 2 more samples in. I got this sample in, and I just wasn't impressed with the quality of it, Yeah. What did I tell you? I started at 10:30, filled it up with ice, 10:30 a.m. By 12:30 a.m., 10 hours later, the ice had all melted and the temperature read 57 degrees Fahrenheit, which is cool for a drink, but come on.
But we are interested in quality control over here at Music Student 101.
Within the budget.
Yeah. So see, we're over here testing, liquid containment devices for our Patreons. That's the commitment we have.
Scientifically too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, checking its temperature and everything. So yeah, definitely going to get the best we can offer you. Mm-hmm. And then, like we said, at $5, a perfect fifth member, you actually get to ask us a specific music theory question.
Yes, you do.
And here are 15-minute answer
plus.
I don't think one of them yet has not been over 15 minutes. So
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So that's all bonus. Everything after the 15 minutes is bonus. Okay, moving on.
Yes, moving on.
We have a new listener.
Very nice. Karen Collins is from Tampa, Florida.
Yeah. And Karen says, I'm an adult college student about to start my 3rd year of a music degree, and your podcast has been a great help for me during my first 4 semesters of written and oral theory.
Great to hear.
Yeah. And the 100th episode, by the way, she opened up congratulating us on the 100th episode. On the 100th episode, you asked for feedback for future topics.
We did.
And I'm here to say 20th century, 21st century, post-tonal music, please.
Okay. Well, you asked for it.
You asked for it. She says, I got a taste over the past year and discovered that I love music theory. I plan to take all the theory courses my school offers. In a different universe, I would consider grad school, but since I'm middle-aged and married and my local university doesn't offer graduate programs in theory, that's not to be.
Aw.
Well,
I went to graduate school somewhat later in life myself, and I can empathize with how hard it can be. It can be hard in that way.
Very occupying of your time and your mind.
Yeah.
But meantime, you have Music Student 101.
Right.
And she continues, I really hope you guys decide to touch on topics in advanced theory in future episodes. Thanks again for all you do.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. I love to hear support of 20th and 21st century music theory. It's it's something that is very, very different. And in the past we have maybe said to ourselves, well, do we really want to get into it? So it is nice to hear somebody saying yes, please get into it, because I certainly enjoy talking about that stuff. And everything opens your mind musically, right?
And it just so happens I have in my hand here the 20th Century Music Techniques, 20th Century Music by Stefan Koska. And just to give a preview, some of the things we can talk about. Oh, the twilight of the tonal system. So
yeah,
recap on tonal scale formations in the 20th century music, vertical dimension, chords and simultaneities, horizontal dimension. So sounds like a little bit of what we've been talking about, but maybe they expound a bit.
Well, it's going to be the 20th century version of what we've been talking about. So scales in the 20th century are things like the whole tone scale, the octatonic pitch collection. What else? The revital of the modes, which we've talked about modes a lot, but they come back.
Diminished scales.
Yeah, the diminished scales. Simultaneities are going to involve things like polychords, quartal harmonies, quintal harmonies. Just crazy stuff, right?
Play us a polychord, Matt. What the heck?
Play us a polychord.
We'll give you a glimpse.
Okay. I can play. Why don't I play a really famous one, albeit in the wrong version? This is from Stravinsky. And I can probably get that into a slightly more pleasant.
So we have two chords going on at one time. What are these chords?
C and F sharp.
C and F sharp.
So they are a tritone away.
Both major?
Both major.
Interesting. So essentially we have three tritone relationships happening.
I mean, if I play one that's a little more constant, a little perfect fifth away, it sounds a little...
Oh, sweet.
That's a little... Especially after that first one, right? Yeah.
Relatively speaking, yes.
So, polychord.
Well, there's that, and then there's imports and illusions. I'm not even sure what that is.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
we'll
review the book before we spread the stuff. But classical serialism, I think, is another one that we talked about a lot.
I know what that is.
Serialism after 1945.
Right,
Post-World War II serialism.
Post-World War II serialism versus pre-World War II serialism. Yeah, that's a thing.
That is a thing. So you just hang in there.
Yeah.
Karen.
Our listenership is going to consist of Karen by the time we're done with that.
I think you underestimate. I kind of flinch at this topic, but a lot of people really are fascinated by it, and it really is kind of fascinating.
Oh, hey, I'm more than happy to talk about it.
Yeah, see how it goes.
Yeah, you all have been duly warned. It's going to get heavy. Anyway.
All right. Oh, I meant to ask you, Matt, before we get into this episode, how does Fran like your T-shirt?
She loves it.
She loves it.
Yeah.
Fran is now the proud owner of a Music
Student 101 T-shirt. Yes.
As am I and Matt and our drum player, Brian.
Yep. They're nice.
Yeah.
They're nice.
So you can get those. You can check on our website. We have a place where you can donate. We have a donations page.
Yes.
But also you can link to the Redbubble spot where our T-shirts can be
Where our
sold.
T-shirts are available. Yeah.
Soft tees.
Very trendy.
Yeah, all kinds of different options and more than just T-shirts.
Yeah, so check that out.
Okay.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, like I said, as we close out what would be considered the Theory 4 level episodes, I've been kind of going through our textbooks and trying to hit some of these last few topics.
Right, yeah.
Some of which we touched on, but would like to build on.
The little tying up of a few little last minute things, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And today's topic, enharmonic spellings, enharmonic reinterpretation,
right,
enharmonic modulations.
Yeah. So, like the fully diminished seventh chord episode, this episode is about things that we have covered before, but we sort of covered them in passing or within the context of some other subject, right? But it's worth taking the idea of enharmonic reinterpretation. It's kind of worth taking it out of those other subjects and looking at it as a thing in and of itself, much like the fully diminished seventh chord sort of necessitated us doing that. So that's what we're going to do today. Is we're going to talk about what we mean when we say enharmonic reinterpretation, what that means, what it does, and what it portends for your music. Right?
Yeah. Right. I think that this whole episode could pretty well be summed up in just one or two sentences, honestly. But this is going to be a time to give your ears a treat and kind of listen to, if anything, get a review of the German and the French augmented sixth chords or the augmented chords and some of these thick, fully diminished seventh chords.
Yeah, well, didn't the Buddha say, I can say my teachings in short or in detail. It's finding people who understand that is hard.
Yes. Maybe by the time this is done, you'll be more of those understanding crowd.
Let's hope so. We'll try to do some detail.
Yeah. So let us begin.
first of all, we probably need to sort of explain what we mean by enharmonic, right? Or enharmonic spellings. And again, this goes all the way back probably to episode 1. And the simplest explanation for an enharmonic spelling or an enharmonic respelling is the difference between A sharp and B flat, right? So, you know, I can call that note A sharp, or I can call that note B flat, because it is a half step above A, which means it is a half step below B, right? So it's either A sharp or B flat. And why I call it one or the other really depends on context. Really depends on, you know, what music you're looking at and what you're doing, right?
What key you're in?
What key you're in. So, for example, if I was in the key of E flat, then this is B flat, right? This is scale degree 5. There's no good reason to call it A sharp. You know, you would just call it B flat, and then because you're playing in the key of E flat. If I was, on the other hand, in the key of I don't know, let's say B minor. Let's see, where am I? And then I did that like that. Yeah.
Is that a 5 chord?
That's a 5 chord. So now this is the raised scale degree 7, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm calling it A sharp, because it is going to move to my beautiful little tonic. B natural, yeah, right.
It's the leading tone moving to B natural.
Is the leading, yeah, which we've talked about a lot, right? So in that case, I'm calling it A sharp. Now in both of these, we're talking about the same note, same frequency, right? We're just calling it A sharp in one context, really based on how it's going to move, and then we're calling it B flat in another context, you know. And so this is the concept of enharmonic spelling.
Okay.
Right. So composers will use, and like I said, this is sort of, you know, this is sort of basic stuff probably for most of us. But it gets more fun. It gets more sophisticated. For example, composers will use enharmonic spellings freely, at will. They really very rarely feel confined to specifically call something one thing or the other. They will use it to make the music as easily understandable as they can possibly get it.
For the performer, for the reader.
For the performer and for the reader, yeah. For that, to use that example I just did, if I called B flat A sharp in the key of E flat, you know, then, you know, my tonic chord is E flat G and A sharp, which is some kind of weird, right? Like, I don't even know what that would be. You know, some kind of like weird inverted 6 omit 5 chord or some yeah, which is not. It's you know, it's a tonic chord. Just call it B flat, right? So, you know, for example.
Oh, and do I understand correctly that when the reader is reading music, when they see a sharp accidental, typically they can assume that the following note will move up by a half step, whereas a flat would often go down.
Move down,
the following note.
Yeah, and so a lot of these enharmonic spellings are chosen with the with that idea in mind, that it's more customary that if you're planning to move this up, make it a sharp, versus if you're if you're moving down, make it a flat.
Just a quick little hint before that measure arrives, you know. Just
right, yeah.
Heads up.
Just to sort of visually cue you in, because all of these things help your performance too, right? Just sort of visually cue you in that note's probably going to move up.
Yeah.
Now, you know, Karen mentioned the 20th century, and a lot of these rules get thrown out with the 20th, because there's just no, you know, there's just no system by which we say this might move up or down. You don't know where it's going.
Right.
But in the system of tonal harmony that we've been talking about for most of the time, sharps will tend to move up and flats will tend to move down. barring a few sort of exceptions.
Always exceptions.
There's exceptions. There's no such thing as a hard, fast musical rule.
That's why it's theory.
Yeah, you've got to make sound. That's about a hard, fast musical rule. Everything past that is up in the air.
Yeah.
For example, let's say I'm in G major. Yeah, good old G major.
Feels G-ish.
Yeah, I go from 1 to 5, whatever. And then, we're going to do a 7, fully diminished 7 of 5. Yeah.
Which in G major would be a C sharp, fully diminished.
C sharp, fully diminished 7. And refer to it could be in any one of those notes diminished, fully diminished 7, right? Refer back to our, because this note here, so I'm playing C sharp, I'm playing E, I'm playing G, and then I'm going to call this A sharp, not B flat.
Okay.
And the reason I'm doing that is because typically this was going to resolve back up. If it resolves back up to like a 1-6-4 chord, for example. So all in succession, kind of what I did was.
Can you tap out the leading tone note and that voice?
Sure. So. 1, 5, 7 of 5.
Okay, there's that leading tone.
7 of 5, yeah, A sharp, moving to B.
Yep.
Me.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're calling it A sharp, not B flat, because it is having the tendency to resolve up. We're also actually calling that C sharp fully diminished 7 rather than D flat fully diminished 7 for the same reason, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess traditionally when you're stacking chords, when you're building a triad or a 7th chord, you usually skip every letter, right?
Yeah.
So
they're built on thirds.
Where we would normally say what? C sharp, E, how does that go? G.
E, C sharp, E, G.
B flat. Because B flat would be skipping A and skipping from G to B, skipping a third.
Yeah.
But we're renaming it now.
A sharp.
And messing with that kind of little convention.
And messing with that convention a little bit for the sake of the motion it's going to do. Right, yeah. You can, and again, go back and check out that episode on fully diminished 7s that we did. This could also easily be A sharp fully diminished 7 in second inversion. Or first inversion, sorry. Or it could be E fully diminished 7 because that's the way diminished 7s work. But yeah,
symmetrical set.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in how we're spelling that last minor third from G to B flat as an augmented second from G to A sharp for the sake of its motion. Yeah, and composers will do that. Rather than make you do something weird like go from B flat to B natural. Which is actually not that weird in modern times, but when you're talking about Schubert, he wanted to give you that sense of moving up.
Okay, you got any more examples before we move on?
Well, just some of the things composers do. So they'll respell notes in a chord like this. They'll also respell keys entirely, right? For example, if you are in the key of blah, 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 I don't know, C minor, right? And you have a borrowed flat 6 chord, which then becomes your tonic. So if you modulate to the flat 6, which is something that happened a lot in the 19th century, you end up in A flat minor, which has got a whole lot of flats in it, right? Rather than spell it as A flat minor, they will call it G sharp minor, which has a fewer sharps in it. Right? There's an example of Schubert modulating. He's in G flat major, and he modulates to the parallel minor, which is G flat minor. 9 flats in G flat minor. Right? that can't be, right?
That can't be.
So instead of saying G flat minor, we'll say F sharp minor, which has a very nice and comfortable 3 sharps in it. You know, much easier to play, much easier to think about.
Process.
Much easier to process, you know.
Seems like the main goal of these enharmonic spellings, when I was saying we could sum it up in one sentence, I mean, basically to not litter the page with accidentals.
Don't litter the page with accidentals.
If they're not necessary, and making it more just ergonomical, if that's the right word for the reader.
Yeah, it is to some extent, at least in this stage, about good score writing. Don't litter the page with accidentals. Yeah, that's good. Don't do crazy stuff where, you know, instead of making some kind of suspended augmented second chord or something, you just make D major, right? If your notes make out a major or minor chord, make them make out a major or minor chord. Yeah. Good sort of score writing like that makes it easy for you musicians to look at your score and read them. This is something that theory students like Karen have to learn to sort of figure out, right? Is that your key signature is your best friend until it isn't, right? That if you see a whole lot of examples, you have to at least consider the possibility that you're in a different key, right? So you definitely do see that, especially, you know, when you've modulated to the 5th or something, and it only means removing 1 accidental anyway. You know, you see, or adding 1 accidental anyway. You see that a lot. You also will, if the key is really, really far away, you know, if you went from G major to, you know, D sharp minor or something, or if you're going to be in that key for a really, really long time, you do see just a new key signature starting at a certain measure. You will see that too.
Boom.
Yeah.
But you'll definitely hear a modulation before you'll hear. You're not going to hear the enharmonic respelling.
You're not going to hear the enharmonic respelling. You know, the music is the music. You're going to hear the music.
Yes.
And if the music changes key, the music changes key.
Yeah.
You know, the question is, how are you going to represent that to the person who is supposed to play your music?
These are all the little gears beneath the watch.
Yeah. Trying to make it as easy as possible for your score to be read. You know, I've heard horror stories about, you know, compositions by, you know, like Anton Bruckner, you know, this late 19th century German guy and stuff, where he would have like a sharp and a flat both sitting there, and the player would be like, you know, WTF, man, what am I even supposed to do with? Right? You know, so yeah, it's a thing where you've got to make it as easy as possible. At least that's one of the primary uses for enharmonic respellings.
Okay.
And we've known about that since all the way back in, you know, our episode about the major keys, right, around the circle of fifths. That's like episode 3 or something.
Early on, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely in the first 10.
Yeah. We also use enharmonic spellings in a more interesting way, which is to lead us somewhere that we thought we would never be able to get to, but was kind of really close to us all along. And that is what we call enharmonic reinterpretation.
And while we're still talking about composers doing this for the benefit of the reader, the performer, do the arrangers deal with respellings, or is it already done when the composers...
Well, I think by arranger, you probably mean the publisher, right?
Or like if somebody takes a Chopin piano piece and wants to put it on horns or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, in that case, yeah, the arranger has to deal with this.
Yeah, okay.
And a horn is a transposing instrument, right?
Sure.
So that arranger has to deal with that, too.
Good luck.
Yeah, and so the key will be transposed, and all the accidentals will, you know. But yeah, they will then have to deal with that. And the publisher has to deal with that, right? You know, I mean, if you're... You know, if you've got a nice cushy job at Boozy and Hawkes, and your task is to get this score of this catalog of Beethoven string quartets ready for, you know, to be, you know, put on music store shelves, you know, you have to deal with making, you know, your version of the score the easiest to read. You know, because you don't really necessarily care what Beethoven was thinking about theoretically as much as you care about how easy is this to play, right?
Yes.
That's what's going to make somebody reach for your Boozy and Hawkes publication over somebody else's, right? Is that it's easy to sit down and play.
I see.
Or as easy as Beethoven ever gets.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so yeah, those people absolutely do deal with that. And composers do make bad decisions with this kind of stuff sometimes.
All right, on.
You know, one of the things in composition classes you often get grilled on is should you use the other enharmonic on a given note? Or, you know, I have definitely gotten grilled on that before. So,
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't argue against it. You had to submit at some point.
I don't remember. Knowing me, I probably did argue against it.
Say, I'm sure you did. But you can't give yourself the grade.
Yeah, I can't give myself the grade. And you know, I had an orchestral reading once, and the bass player came up to me afterwards and says, "Look, all of this stuff that you say is in G minor. This could all just be in D minor."
Uh-huh.
You know, and I was like, "Well, you know, okay, buddy, you're only looking at the bass part, but yeah, okay, you know, I saw his point. You know, I was like, yeah, you know what, I could have just changed the key signature there."
Just on the bass staff?
Well, for the whole score, I guess.
Okay.
You know, like I said, yeah, he was only looking at the bass part, so yeah. But yeah, I could have changed the whole score there, and you know, it was kind of hard place to say, well, why didn't I? You know, and you know, it's just a difference of, you know, some people like to see a key change so they can just mentally switch, and then some people can read accidentals and not even realize they just read that note differently. You know, I mean, it's so intuitive. You know.
I envy that
At
among
that
readers.
level, anyway, when you're dealing with orchestra players, it's so intuitive at that level that, you know. So, yeah, lots of people deal with this kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's an important topic, one might say.
It is an important topic. And, you know, it is something, like I said, you know, we've been dealing with it, you know, like I said, all the way back to episode 3 or whatever. We don't mention it specifically every time, but we are dealing with these things. We have also dealt with enharmonics in the context of enharmonic reinterpretation.
Yeah, I'm a little foggy on these prior to reading the chapter a couple of days ago.
Yeah. So this is a way for us composers and musicians to realize that things we thought was very, very far away is in fact not so far away at all. Right? There are certain chords that with a just respelling enharmonically a note or maybe two become entirely different chords that have entirely different roles in our harmonic function that can even propel us into new keys.
Okay.
Into just new universes altogether, and you would not have ever expected them until you enharmonically respelled a single note. All right, and this is something that is so important for theory students to grasp, is that A sharp B flat is A sharp / B flat, and you know it's almost like, you know, a playing card that looks like a brick. Remember My Cousin Vinny? You know, that thing you did where it's like, it looks like a brick, but when you turn it on your side, it's just thin as a plank. Yeah, it's almost like that. You know, just a different perspective, and then you've got an entirely different thing.
Oh, yeah. Perspective.
Perspective is everything.
Giving it to you by Joe Pesci.
Given it to you by Joe Pesci, yeah. Good old Joe Pesci. That's
You
one
say
of my.
that's brick. You say that's brick.
Just one of my favorite movies ever. You know.
Totally.
What is a Ute? Anyway, all right. But so what's crazy about these things is we're not talking about changing a note, and that's the thing that is kind of, it becomes important for you to grasp, really, and that's harder to grasp than a lot of people realize. A lot of people don't realize how much of their thinking is tied up into whether you said A sharp or B flat. It really is, you know. But you know, we are not talking about changing any of the notes in any of these chords. The notes are still there.
Same sonority.
Same sonority.
Same pitch collection.
Same pitch collection. You know, we're just thinking of them a little bit differently, and because of that, we have this whole other set of possibilities of what we can do and perhaps even what we should do. Here's a good example.
All right.
I will. We started out in G major. I can just stay in G major.
Fun.
So we're in good old G major. By the way, I'm sure at this point we've all sort of heard the sort of truism that COVID-19 exacerbated all these problems in our societies and cultures and things. One of the problems that COVID-19 laid bare and greatly exacerbated was my crappy piano playing. Okay, it is even worse now.
So it's not like riding a bicycle.
Apparently not. But anyway, we are in G major.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
You better believe it, buddy. And you would think I could have used the COVID quarantine to practice my piano. Clearly, I didn't.
And neither did I.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we're in G major. Right?
All right, good place to be.
Yep. And what I'm going to do...
G is for good.
G is for good. Let's hope so. And I'm going to move to 5/7, right? Pretty easy. Right? And of course, you expect it to... or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, or go through some cool thing. But no, we're going to go 1, 5/7.
Okay.
And I'm going to take this 7th to 5/7. C.
We got D, F sharp, A, and C.
C, right, exactly. I'm going to take this C, and rather than think of it as C, I'm going to think of it as B sharp.
Okay.
So now what we have is D, B sharp, F sharp, and A.
Okay.
Right? So what kind of chord does that sound like?
Well, it sounds like the same chord.
It sounds like the same chord, right? But if this is B sharp, you know, and this is F sharp, and this is A, and this is D, we have, in the key of F sharp, we have a flat 6, a sharp 4,
the flat 6 being
D.
Okay.
In the augmented fourth, B sharp. Yeah, we have scale degree 1 in F sharp. And scale degree flat 3 in A.
Oh, okay.
So now what we have is a German augmented 6 chord in a key that is a half step below where we started, and we can resolve it that way. You know, so I'm going to resolve it to a good old.
Okay.
And now I ended in F sharp minor.
Can you show us the first time where we actually stick around in G,
Sure.
and then the next time end up in F sharp and see how they compare?
Yeah, sure.
Same chord.
Same chord, same thing. So first time we're going to be in G, and we're going to go 5/7.
5/7.
1. Yeah. But this time I'm going to go 1. Yeah. 1 6 4 5/7. This 5/7 is also German augmented 6 in F sharp. So I'm going to go German augmented 6. 1 6 4
F sharp.
5/7. 5 actually. 5 1.
Okay, so now we're in F sharp minor.
Now in F sharp minor.
A half step below where we began.
A half step below where we began.
Normally you would expect a lot of work to get to that, right?
Yeah.
Modulating to that.
Yep.
But now this time, we could hear, based on the two examples, we heard the difference based on the chords that followed. But if you just chopped it off, if you turned off the music right at the 5/7 chord,
Yeah.
as far as we're concerned, we'd probably still be in G. You'd want to hear
Probably,
that
yeah.
well, you wouldn't still be in G, but you'd want to hear that 1.
You'd want to hear it as 5/7. Hearing it as 5/7 moving to 1 in G would be your expectation, right? But great composers achieve a lot of their greatness by knowing when, where, and how to defy your expectation.
Yes.
You know, and this is a great way to defy expectations. You know. Sounded pretty defied to me.
Sounded awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like more times than not, I've heard like really accomplished pianists just kind of fiddling around on a piano.
Yeah.
And then they'll just do all these cool, like Elton John, I think it did a lot of this, just kind of doing his own little compositions, moving all around, and you're like, how is he getting to where he's going? This is how they're getting to where they're going.
This is how they're getting to where they're going, yeah.
And they can do this on the fly, some of these, you know.
It's amazing to me that these chords are the same chords, right? They sound the same way. I mean, D7 and German augmented 6 and F sharp are not two different things, right? They're the same chords. They're the same notes. And we talk so much about, well, 5/7 wants to move to 1. It has to move to 1. Yet, well, has really kind of needs to be in quotation marks, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Yeah.
I mean, to me, this ought to shake our very foundations of how we think harmonic function works. And in fact, it does. And in fact, it did. If I need any more, hints about the upcoming 20th century stuff.
Forget all 102 episodes you've listened to at this point. Forget everything you ever learned about music theory.
Well, don't forget everything you ever learned, but just remember with this thing above all, harmony is counterpoint. Harmony is how the notes tend to move, and that is more important than whether you call it a 5/7 or not.
So I meant to ask this earlier, because I noticed a lot of times the German augmented 6 chord moves to a 1/6/4 chord before it gets to the 5. Is that necessary?
It is. It's not written in stone. It's not. I mean, there are probably examples in the repertoire where it doesn't. The thing about that is, it is so easy to do that. It is such a convenient way to avoid parallelisms, avoid parallel fifths and things, and to also sort of add some drama to the cadence in a new key, and to add a sense of stability to reinforce well that new key. Whenever you change keys, you have to do something to sort of get people's ears in that space. Right, drive it home, yeah. It's such a good, easy, convenient way to do that. That's what happens the majority of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you've listened to our fully diminished 7th chord episode, you might be a little bit primed for the next topic here.
You might indeed. The fully diminished 7th chord, which you may recall from that episode, can be interpreted as a leading tone chord with any of the other 3 chord members in that chord. Any one of those notes in that chord can be a root. The fully diminished 7 chord is what we call a symmetrical set. It is all minor thirds up, minor thirds up, stacked.
And then by the time you get to the 4th one, you're back at the roots.
Right. So just to recap that idea,
I guess,
if I start on C sharp. And I'm going to spell a fully diminished 7th chord. I'm going to go C sharp, up a minor third to E. I'm going to go up a minor third from E to G. And I'm going to go up that minor third from G to B flat. Let's call it B flat for now. We may have to call it A sharp, right?
As we would call it,
and to B flat. This is my fully diminished 7th chord. And then from B flat, we move up to D flat, but let's call it C sharp, right?
Yes.
We
have to respell it just to get back to the 1.
Yeah. So it's minor thirds all the way around. And that's got a symmetrical set. And because there's no variation in that intervallic quality, you could really think of any one of these as the root of that fully diminished 7 chord. I can call this E fully diminished 7, and I'll have exactly the same notes. E, up a minor third to G, up a minor third to B flat, up a minor third to D flat, and then up a minor third to E flat. Again, that D flat should have to be C sharp at that point. We run into the same enharmonic thing.
Yeah.
But it's the same notes. It's the same notes.
Yeah.
So because of that, any of those could be the root of that chord, which means this chord can be interpreted as a leading tone chord, a 7 of any chord that is a half step above any one of those.
Yeah.
Can
we hear that?
Sure.
We started off with a what? C sharp diminished?
I want to start off with a C sharp diminished.
Fully diminished, I guess.
Fully diminished, yeah. Half diminished 7, this doesn't work.
Okay.
Because half diminished 7 has a what? Is a major second away from the root, that last note. Yeah, so and it's actually a major third up. That last note goes a major third up, not a minor third up. So it doesn't work with that.
It skews with the symmetricalness.
Yeah, skews the symmetry, ergo it doesn't work. Has to be a fully diminished 7 chord.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to play this, what we call C sharp fully diminished 7. Yeah. And I'm going to decide that this is in fact a inversion of an E fully diminished 7, which means it's going to kind of go to F, right?
Oh yeah, like butter. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But you could have been in D. That could have been a 7 of the D. You could have been the key of D major.
Yeah.
And that could have been this 7 of D, and you could have gone right to D and had it as pleasing an effect, right?
Sure. Let's do that. Oops. And then
drive it home.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Easy.
Nice, man.
I could, wait, why do I keep, I could decide I'm in A flat. And then, this is real pretty. So.
And now we just left out one more, didn't we?
We only left out.
Might as well cover that other one.
Yeah, might as well cover that other one. So, I could be in B. Where am I going? I'm going there. Yeah, there we go. So yeah.
And these could be 7 of a 5 in the new key, for example, right?
Oh sure. Yeah. And we covered a lot of this the last time, but yeah. So I could use this as modulation. So let's say I'm in the key of G major, and I want to go somewhere like E major.
Okay.
Right, 3 sharps away.
Okay, distant enough.
Yeah. The minor third down. This might be hard to do via common chord modulation, right? That might be tough to go. But if I use my fully diminished 7, so I can be in G, and I can sort of go 1, 4, and this is 5, 7, and you expect it to right, something like that. But and 5, 7, 7 of 5, and we'll make the 7 of 5 a 5, which means then we can say that we are now in B,
being the 5 of E,
and then we move to E. Well, that might take a little driving home. But yeah, and now we're in the key of E.
And it all happened pretty quickly.
Pretty fast.
Efficiently.
So fast that my ears didn't really register that as modulation, right? I needed it kind of driven home a little more.
Yeah.
So I'll try it again. 1, I do 4, and then 5, 7, and then we do our 7 of 5. Yeah, and then let's do an augment let's do a 1, 6, 4 this time. So we can do here we go. Yeah. So pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. Now we're all the 7
from 7 of anything to 7 of anything. And if you ever study a lot of Chopin scores, he does this kind of stuff a lot. It's maddening, really. Really, it's maddening.
And what makes this such a flexible chord is, like we said, the symmetrical quality of the arrangement of notes.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that any of those could be the root means it could be a 7 of anything.
So we got to say, and we also said that that doesn't work with the half diminished 7
It does
chord,
not,
because it's not symmetrical, and it doesn't work with the triad, the diminished triad, or I guess it could. You just only have 2 options to go to.
Yeah, it could potentially. You'd only have like 3 options.
3 options, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
1 for each note. in a
Yeah,
triad.
by the time this kind of enharmonic modulation is common in the repertoire, sevens are, prevalent. You don't see a lot of just diminished triads. So,
Now the augmented chord is also a symmetrical set.
the augmented triad. So if I'm in good old, let's give G a break. If I'm in D major and I play or if I'm just playing a chord, if I play a D augmented triad, right? I'm doing the same thing except I'm going up in major thirds, right? So I'm going from D up a major third to F sharp, up a major third to A sharp,
Right.
and up a major third from A sharp back to D.
Good old D.
Yeah, right. Yeah. A sharp, B flat, right? B flat to D. So that is a symmetrical set too, and because of that,
Or would you call it C double sharp because we want to skip a letter each time? How would you spell it? Seriously, I'm being serious.
would you spell it C double sharp? Technically, yes.
You could.
So if you're looking at this on a score, right? If you're in treble clef, this D is is hanging below the bottom line, right? And this is on the F sharp is on the first space, and this A is on the second space. So yeah, you're right. This would be on the third space, but you would have to call it C double sharp for it to be on the third space. Then it would look like a chord,
Yes.
but it'd have that double sharp,
For anyone analyzing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Good catch.
So anyway, this chord can act as another kind of enharmonic reinterpretation, right?
Right, yeah. So this can be this augmented triad can be the augmented triad. It doesn't have to just be D augmented. It could also be F sharp augmented. So F sharp, A sharp, up a major third to D, and then F sharp again. So it's also F sharp augmented, just like the fully diminished 7. Or it is A sharp / B flat augmented. B flat, D, and then raise the 5th, F sharp, and then F sharp to B flat. So we're using the same 4 notes, no matter what we do.
Yes.
Right?
Or the same 3 notes, right?
Same 3 notes, yeah. Good catch again.
You can say that again if you want.
No, that's fine. I like the good catch thing.
Okay. You don't mind being caught every now and again?
I prefer it.
Okay. And then what I think we kind of determined, or at least I feel like I've experienced, that the augmented chord usually precedes, it's a predominant chord, usually comes before 5.
Yeah.
So that, for example, what were we doing? D, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, or whatever.
D, F sharp, A sharp, C. I might actually say not C double sharp, D, because it is actually the root of the chord.
Yeah.
So, you have to make that decision. Do I keep spelling up in thirds, or do I acknowledge the root, quote unquote, that I think is that chord?
Now that's a good catch on your part.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting stuff. It would depend on context. I would go for spelling the root of that chord. To avoid a double sharp, which makes people, kind of...
Double cringe.
Double cringe, yeah.
Well, before we move on, let's see here. So did we kind of cover how it can go to... Did we do an example yet of how it can go to...
Well, there are not many augmented triads that are a diatonic triad. Right? The one that I think of off the top of my head is if you were in harmonic minor, 3 is augmented. So if I'm in D minor, and I'm going to be really specific that this is D harmonic minor, right? So if I'm in D harmonic minor, then the F, is diatonically augmented because of that leading tone. This is not one that you do a whole lot, but there it is.
The C sharp note.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then so presumably you kind of have to do that.
Does it still function as a 3?
to the extent that 3 functions, you know. Yeah, sure. It still functions as, I mean, yeah.
Which is kind of functioning as a 1 a little bit.
Yeah, this is why the minors, harmonic, melodic, and natural go in and out depending on which one you need at the time. So you get to avoid this BS, yeah, if you're trying to, right? But, you know, if you do have a 3 augmented triad, and, you know, your instinct is to maybe, you know, to resolve that up or something, or or something crazy like that. You might want to think of you know, resolving it so that it was F sharp augmented rather than D augmented.
Okay.
Right? Because it can be any one. Similar to the fully diminished 7. You know, it's a little messed up because you don't get a lot of diatonic augmented triads.
No,
right.
No. And when you do, it's in a weird case. It's not a standard major minor key. It's this arrangement of notes.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. It's an alteration from the original minor scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about this number 4 here.
Yeah, the French augmented triad.
The French is, how do we spell that again?
So, what key you want to be in?
Let's do A major.
Let's do A major.
I'm just gonna keep on moving up a 5th. We're going to the circle of 5ths as we do this.
So if we're in A major, French augmented 6 is going to have scale degree 1. Just like any augmented 6. It's going to have scale degree sharp 4, just like any. It's going to have scale degree flat 6, just like any augmented 6. And it's going to have scale degree 2.
Okay.
Right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that scale degree 2 is the Frenchiness.
Is the Frenchiness.
Okay.
They like, so I've sort of hidden my 2 in this, but that kind of sound is the Frenchiness part.
I hear it.
Yeah, so
Maybe.
yeah, and then this is most commonly going to resolve to 5. Right? So flat 6, come here, flat 6. Okay. Flat 6, 1, 2, and sharp 4. Is our French augmented 6.
That's thick.
In A major.
In A major.
Yes. But it can also be the French augmented 6 in a key a tritone away. Same notes, everything, just inharmonically respell one of them. I think one of them.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
So let's see. What's a tritone away?
From A major?
From A major.
Good old E flat, or would we call it D sharp?
D sharp would have 6 sharps and 2 double sharps.
Let's call it E flat.
Let's call it E flat.
Okay.
We'll call it E flat. So let's spell an E flat in. Let's spell a French augmented 6 in E flat now.
Okay.
So we're going to have flat 6, right? So
C.
C.
No, not E flat.
Yeah.
It would be it would be a C.
It would be a C.
It would be a B. It would be a C flat.
C flat. There you go.
Yeah.
So we're going to spell it in E flat. So we're going to have a flat 6,
Which is a C.
C flat.
C flat, right. Okay.
AKA B.
Yes, okay.
Right? We are going to have sharp 4, which in E flat is going to be A. Right?
Yes.
And we are going to have, what else? We're going to have scale degree 1.
A good old E flat, yeah.
A good old E flat. And we're going to have scale degree 2, which is...
an E flat, I guess that would be an F natural.
F.
Yeah.
So now we've got C flat, A, E flat, F. Right? And then this, again, is going to go to 5. You know, which would go to 1. But look at what we did. C flat, A, E flat, F. If we had called that C flat B natural, we have B natural, A, D sharp instead of E flat. So we do have to change to. And F, which is exactly the same 4 notes as our French augmented 6 from A major.
Wow. Okay, so it worked.
So so look at this. E flat has, in the French augmented 6, C flat, flat 6, A, sharp 4, right? It has scale degree 1, E flat, and scale degree 2, F. And we can go to B flat and then back to E flat.
Yeah.
French augmented 6 in A major has B, scale degree 2,
Yep.
right? But it also has A, scale degree 1. It has, instead of E flat, it has D sharp, same note, right? As our augmented 4th, and it has F, scale degree 6. Yeah. And then this time, we're just going to go to the 5 and E, which is 5 and A rather, which is E. So it could be a French augmented 6 in either one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And same chord.
Same chord.
And really same function, just in a new key or in a different key, right?
Yeah, really same function, just in a different key. I wonder, and I've never tried this, so you all are witness to an experiment here.
The laboratory environment.
Yeah, let's see how this works. Let's see if I can modulate from A to E flat by reinterpreting my augmented 6 chord.
Okay, we're going to a key, a tritone away.
Right, yeah. So I'm going to be an A major. This is an experiment now. There we go. Okay. So we're in A major. We're going to 1, 4, French augmented 6, and then E flat, 5 and E flat, B flat. Pretty cool, huh?
Very cool.
Yeah, a tritone away.
Well done.
Yeah, that's an experiment. We'll see,
So we've proven that we kind of have 4 types of chords that can actually be reinterpreted enharmonically, right?
Yeah, 5/7, which can be a German augmented 6. Fully diminished 7ths, which can be a 7 of at least 4 things. Augmented triads, which can be an augmented triad in any one of 3 keys. Right, and the French augmented 6 triad, which can be a French augmented 6 in any of 2 keys a tritone apart.
Yeah, which is kind of unexpected because when you put together that combination of notes, you don't imagine it working in anything but one key.
It's kind of amazing. It's kind of theory magic.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, let's move on, shall we?
Yes.
Enharmonic modulations using the major minor 7th sonority. Well, we kind of talked about that a little bit.
We kind of talked about it. So in enharmonic modulation, the common chord is reinterpreted enharmonically to better fit the new key. The spelling is not important, but the common chord should actually be sonically recognized as a sensible chord in both keys.
Can you translate that?
We can just sort of, what's neat about this is, we can change one note from a sharp to a flat or from a natural to a sharp or something, and just completely rethink this chord. I hesitate to say have a completely new chord because we haven't changed any notes.
Yeah,
we're just completely rethinking this chord, and can completely rethink what key we're even in, by extension, and then move to new keys.
Yeah,
completely enharmonically. And so what's important is that you spell the chord. What's important to the performer is that you spell the chord in a way so as the new key starts to make sense. So to give you an example, let's be in A major still. I'm going to go 1, right? And I'm going to go 5, 7, or 4. And this might go to, this is probably going to go to 4. Yeah. Which is itself going to go to 5 and 1. I use some inversions in there. Pardon my counterpoint.
Hey.
Something like that.
That's
right?
what we would expect.
That's what we would expect.
Uh-huh.
Instead, I am going to go 1, 5, 7, a 4, 5, 4, 2, a 4. This is going to be an inverted augmented 6 chord. So I'm going to think of G as F double sharp, which is, in other words, the augmented 4th in C sharp minor. Right? Because then I've got F double sharp, which is our raised 4th.
Yeah.
C sharp and E, scale degree 1, scale degree flat 3. And A natural, aka the flat 6, right? In C sharp minor. So my F double sharp, my A move both into G sharp.
Yeah.
You know, 1, 6, 4, 5, 7, 1, C sharp minor.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so I ended up in the minor key a major third away.
Man, I tell you what, when you are trying to do voice leading and do chord progressions using the German augmented chord, you really have to spread it out because you can't have that 6 and 4, the flat 6 and the sharp 4 resolved to the same unison note, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be noticed more. So I feel like I have to really stretch those out.
Yeah,
Or
that
can,
has happened.
Can they resolve to the same note?
In Italian augmented 6s, that can happen sometimes, I think. But usually what happens is one of them is in the bass voice and one of them is in an upper voice, right? Usually the flat 6 is in the bass voice and the sharp 4 is in one of the upper voices, so you end up an octave apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a consideration I take when I have to put these examples together.
Yeah, and think, we modulated to C sharp minor, via that. Imagine if we had reinterpreted 5, 7, and 4 as German augmented 6 of flat 6, and then ended up in E major, German augmented 6 of 6, and then ended up in that C sharp minor becomes our 6th chord, and then we go around the circle of fifths and end on E.
Okay.
That's a messed up way to get to the 5th, but
might sound cool.
Probably would sound cool.
Yeah.
So, when you think about that, any 5/7 chord or secondary 5/7 chord can be reinterpreted as a German augmented 6 chord in the new key. Also works in reverse, right? The German augmented 6 chord, any German augmented 6 chord, can be reinterpreted as a 5/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, and move us into a new key. Yeah. Pretty cool, huh?
Very cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like a portal into a new dimension. And these keys are a half step apart, right? If you reinterpret a 5/7 as a German augmented 6, you're going to end up in a key that is a half step below where you started.
Okay.
If you reinterpret a German augmented 6 as a 5/7, you're going to end up in the key that is a half step above where you started. Yeah, so you're talking about getting from C to C sharp.
Oh, yeah.
Or A to B flat.
Very distantly related.
Yeah. Very, in the space of a chord.
Another portal, like you were saying.
Another portal, yes. A portal to a new dimension. The former way is more common. So 5/7 reinterpreted as German augmented 6 happens more often. But either way it can happen.
Right. So German 6 could be reinterpreted as a 5/7.
Totally.
Or vice versa, but it's more common for the 5, starting with the 5/7 and then reimagining it.
Common is one of those words that I feel like should be in air quotes.
Yeah.
I mean, who really knows how common it is?
He did air quotes, listeners.
I did air quotes.
He did, yes. When he said air quotes. What does that mean?
What does common mean exactly? Did you find 152 examples of one way and 148 of the other, or
who's got time for that?
Or did you do that at all? It's like one of the pieces I've studied. So anyway.
Yeah. And again, we touched on this a little bit, but
we are going to touch on it just a little bit again, and then be done with it.
Yeah.
It's a very important chord. It deserves reiteration. But the fully diminished 7th chord can go to 4 different places, using any chord tone as a leading chord tone. It is maybe not as common as the 5/7 to German augmented sixth thing, unless, again, common air quotes,
Yes.
right? Unless you're talking about Chopin, in which this I think tends to happen a good bit. But you can absolutely do that. So this example, we have seven fully diminished 7 of 1.
And the point also that the fully diminished 7th chord is basically a 5/7 chord with just one altered tone, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So 3 common tones.
Yeah.
No wonder they function almost
Similarly
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. I never thought of it that way. So both the 5/7 and the diminished 7 chord function similarly because they are one chord tone off. Wow.
Did I blow your mind?
A little bit. Little bit.
All right, I'll take a little bit. And so also regarding the fully diminished 7th chord, the chord that follows does not have to be the one that it's the 7 of, right?
Right. You don't have to move it straight to that one, to that chord, right? And this is true of all of diminished 7 chords in general, whether you're reinterpreting one or not, right? But it can sometimes be a more convincing chord progression. If, for example, if I'm in C, and I can go to 7. What is it going to be? 7/6/5, 7 fully diminished 6/5. So and then I can just move that D down to C sharp, to make a 5 of F sharp major. Right? Yeah. Yeah. So that can be a little less jarring than you can just easily.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot.
The 7 of moving to a 5/7 chord by changing the one tone.
By changing the one tone.
Yeah.
So there you go. That is enharmonic reinterpretation and enharmonic respellings in general.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the big takeaway is always be wary of the possibility of respelling a note. And, if you come to something that you don't entirely understand, think about respelling one of those notes and see if it becomes any clearer to you.
Yeah.
There are many cases where it might.
Yeah, there's been times where I've tried to analyze. Now, some chord progressions are just transcend tonal harmony when you're trying to analyze like something maybe the Grateful Dead did or something like that. What is this augmented chord, But now knowing what I know about that, respelling them or retrying to reinterpret them might make everything smoother, which I guess is the main point of all this, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, keep in mind, you're not changing the music by reinterpreting these.
No.
But you may be making the music a little clearer and a little more easily understood, which is sort of the point of theory.
Well, speaking of clearly and more understood, should we do a recap?
Yeah.
Quick recap.
So, enharmonic respellings can be as simple as making something a sharp to show that it's going up, or making something a flat to show that it's going down, where you might otherwise not have it be a sharp or flat, for the sake of showing motion.
Right.
You can also use enharmonics to reinterpret chords. So, for example, any major minor 7th chord, any 5/7 chord, is with the respelling of a single note becomes a German augmented 6th chord in a different key.
Yeah, right. Same sonority.
Yeah, same notes, but it's also a German augmented 6th chord. A fully diminished 7 chord can be a 7 of anything that is a half step above one of its notes.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to tonicize, right?
It doesn't even have to tonicize that.
It can be a 7 of, a 5 of.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be reinterpreted. It could be a 7 of 3 in one key, reinterpreted as a 7 of 6 in the next, and moving. Yeah, so you can really get from anywhere to anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Love it.
The augmented triad can be an augmented triad in one of any 3 keys, corresponding to its 3 notes.
Because it's a symmetrical set, right?
Right. Yeah. And the French augmented 6 can be a French augmented 6 in either of 2 keys that are a tritone away. So whatever key you're thinking of your French augmented sixth in, it could also be a French augmented sixth in the key that is a tritone away from that.
Yeah. The scale degree 2, the Frenchiness of the French augmented chord,
right,
makes it a little bit more difficult, less versatile.
Yeah, there are 2 major seconds in that chord. One is actually a diminished third, but then one is generally a major second. So depending on which of those 2 you consider the major second, giving it its Frenchiness, it goes a tritone away.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
And that's all about enharmonic reinterpretation, right? Respell that diminished third as a major second, and there's your 2. That's your Frenchiness.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, enharmonic modulations using 5/7 respelled as German augmented sixth are considered pretty common. They happen a lot.
Yeah.
Going back the other way, taking a German augmented sixth and reinterpreting it as a 5/7 also happens. You also need to be aware of that possibility.
Right.
Perhaps less common, but still be aware of that possibility. Right?
Why do you think it's less common?
I don't know. I'm not convinced that it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally. But if I were to hypothesize, it's probably because thinking of those notes as quote unquote dissonant, leads to sort of more of a emotional context, right? It's like, oh look, this 5/7 was actually German augmented sixth, so the notes that follow that are going to sort of ring dissonant in your ears because you're not used to that key, and there's probably an effect that's not as potent going back the other way. But that's purely a hypothesis. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not convinced that
it's logical to me.
Right? Who knows? Enharmonic modulations using the diminished 7th chord. Again, they can go to 4 different places. Again, maybe not as commonly used as the 5/7 one, but still very common and very worthwhile, knowing that this is a possibility. As a matter of fact, to even say they're uncommon is, weird. I don't particularly know that they're that uncommon. I certainly have seen them enough,
Yeah, right.
So...
Yeah, it's funny because, text. I guess when a textbook says something like that, you just assume that the author has analyzed way more music than I have, for example. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you assume that.
But there's so much music out there.
Having known people who have authored music theory textbooks, that may be a tough assumption to do. I wouldn't necessarily assume that they've just analyzed a ton of stuff, but...
Well, all someone has to do is a professor higher up than them has to say this happens often, then they'll just maybe assume that they're getting the proper information.
Sure, yeah. And they probably analyze more than, your average undergraduate, certainly. So
hopefully we don't have to fact check our professors. That's kind of the point.
Don't fact check, just always be cautious of words like common.
Be inquisitive, yeah.
Be inquisitive is a good way to think of it. So there you go. And anyway, this is common in the repertoire, right?
Yes.
You as a living, breathing musician do what you want.
Yes.
Right.
Just because something's common doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
Exactly.
More people might like it for whatever reason.
Well, just remember that you make the music. Theorists come along later to explain it, not vice versa.
This is key.
Theorists do not create music and then you come along and try to conform to their rules. The relationship goes the other way.
Yeah.
You make music. Theorists come along and try to explain what you did.
I hope it stays that way.
It always will. It always will. And the truth is always the truth.
Yeah. The truth is always the truth. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
Indeed.
And it was kind of thick in terms of theory. I think if you go on our website, musicstudent101.com, click on episode 102, and you'll be able to... I'm going to try and see if I can graphically represent some of these things. So.
Yeah, it is surprisingly thick for his theory, and it all boils down to a simple thing. If you see any of these chords have another name, and sometimes just calling it another name can make it something completely different.
Or less litter on the score.
Less litter on the score.
Less accidentals.
Yeah.
Less accidents on the school.
Yeah. All right. That's enough for one day, huh?
I think so.
See you next time.
Thanks again for listening. If you wish to support us, check out the donate page on our website or visit patreon.com/musicstudent101. You can find our awesome t-shirts and other merchandise at redbubble.com. And for questions or comments, email us at info@musicstudent101.com.